room. Afternoon, Keith, and welcome back, Adila. I will talk about exactly how to start it. I don't have any examples written down, but I'll give you some in the live stream. I always give a couple minutes before we get started, so we're gonna get started in 3 minutes. Right at when I'm live for 5 minutes is usually when I get started. So let's give a couple minutes for people to get in, and I will go over the assignment in a whole bunch of detail. But yeah, like I said, I don't have any like officially written down for examples. I mean, I can surely write something down if need be, but it's everything's so different person to person on what their list is going to be like. All right. Oh, hang on, I forgot to post in one class. Oh no, I did post that class. Okay, so we're good. And we will get started in like 2-3 minutes, and I will be right back. Okay. All right, guys. So I am going to get started for today. As I'm talking, because this one I'm going to go into a good amount of detail about the assignment. As I'm talking, throw some questions in the chat if there's anything that I'm mentioning that you get a little confused about. I'll like pause a couple times while I'm going to take a look at questions as they come in to see if there's something I need to backtrack for. But a couple of the questions I might take a look reading and just know I'm going to go into that in a little bit. So I might not immediately go into every question that you ask. Before I do get started, the one thing I need to make a mention to is I will get grades up for last week's discussion board very, very soon. I know everybody is very anxious to see how they did for that. Today, I will have everyone's grade for answering the 2 discussion questions on each form. and I'm going to try to get everyone's grade that was in the groups presenting for your presentation and moderating your forum. I'm going to say 90% likely that I'll have all that up by today, but that'll be later today. You'll see if you were in a group presenting, you'll see that probably later today. Beyond that, everything I think is about this week. So this week's assignment, I knew going in would be the assignment that we did online that would have the most questions about it. So while we only have 3 people in the chat right now, I would be surprised if some people end up jumping in a little bit later. And I'll go over this in detail. Now, the first thing that is so important, though, for this week is that you view everything in the module. If you haven't done that yet, that's fine. But some of the things that we're talking about, I'm going to refer to some things that I might have available for you on where to go to find out about that. This week in the module, in the 10-minute lecture on personality, it's actually 14 minutes for this week because personality is just such a big topic. And I spend half of that time talking about this assignment, talking about what the self is, what the self-concept is, and a little bit about how it relates to the assignment, more about just what the self and self-concept is. If you don't know that and you haven't watched that video, make sure you do. Make sure you look at the PowerPoint and you look at all the slides towards the end, the self-concept and the whole thing for Carl Rogers and the humanistic approach. Make sure you take a look at some of the extra videos on personality for this week about other things. It is so essential as well that you understand the psychodynamic mind, defense mechanisms, and those are probably, the psychodynamic mind I have a lot of extra information about. Defense mechanisms, probably a little bit more straightforward, but make sure at the very least you understand those things in detail, and the conscious and unconscious mind. That's everywhere in the textbook, the PowerPoint, the videos, etc., etc. If you need to do a little extra research on the self versus self-concept beyond the book, you could use internet research as well. But specifically to the assignment, the first thing I want to say, and I will say this probably 2 more times while I'm talking for the next 10 minutes, the assignment for this week is informal. What does that mean? It means that you can use I in the paper. It means that this is a reflection-based paper. So you can be talking about yourself pretty much almost the entire time. Some people will even write this up and it'll almost look closer to a journal entry or a diary entry than it will to a paper, and that's okay. Probably should be somewhere in between those, but it's certainly not a formal paper. Keep that in mind. The time investment for this week, the majority of that time investment will be on creating this list of 20 things and evaluating one by one this list of 20 things. The writing the paper up, yeah, it's 2 pages, so it's not going to be a 1, 2, 3 thing. And make sure that it's 2 pages. This is very, very clear, bluntly. To be very blunt, this is an assignment that if you're not giving me 2 pages, it's because you're not putting in enough effort, not because there wasn't things to say. But to this, the majority of your effort is going to be for making this list. The paper itself is conversational. It's informal. Don't stress about it being a formal essay. Now, to the assignment. You're comparing the self and self-concept. The specifics about what those are in all the things I was mentioning before. Make sure you watch that 10-minute lecture. Take a look at the PowerPoint, the textbook, even internet research if you need. The self and the self-concept are really important things. The self being who you really are, and the self-concept being who you think you are. Those aren't always the same thing. As a matter of fact, I can almost guarantee that they are not going to be the same thing for you, because it would not be healthy if your self and self-concept were perfectly congruent. If those were in a perfect overlap, then what would actually happen is you would have some issues, and for this assignment, be issues evidently with self-reflection, but you would actually have psychological issues potentially. So it's not going to be exactly over top. It also probably won't be completely incongruent. It could be. I mean, that can happen when someone gets to that point of needing to talk to a counselor. When you get to that, when it rains, it pours, sometimes that can happen. But I don't think you with this assignment will be there. I think you'll be somewhere in between. Who you really are is not in your conscious mind. Who you think you are is in your conscious mind. So when you're answering this question, I am dot, dot, dot. Everything you write is going to be from your conscious mind. So everything you write will be in your self-concept at least. The question I'm going to have for you is this something that is only in your self-concept, or is this something that's also in your real self? Now, your real self is who you really are. That is not in our conscious mind. Who we really are, well, some of it's in our conscious mind, but some of it is in our unconscious mind. So just because you write something and it's in the self-concept that you think you are that does not necessarily mean you really are that. Why would that be? Well, we get the person that we think we are from other people, and that's in those slides. You get who you think you are because of the things that give you positive regard. There are things in life that we are good at doing, and that's simplifying it, but that's what it simplifies to. When you're good at doing something, people give you respect for it, approval for it, credit for it, praise for it, acceptance for it. In other words, you have to meet people's conditions to get that pat on the back. If you're not a good singer and you are singing, people aren't going to say, wow, you're a great singer. If you are like me and you're not a good singer, what people say is, hey, who sings that? Let's keep it that way. The bottom line is we have things that we are good at doing and things that we're not. The things that we're good at doing will give us positive regard. So there's two possibilities when it comes to positive regard. There is a category for giving us positive regard. That category is the things that we're good at. And I'm simplifying it. It's not only good, it's things that give us acceptance, praise, respect, approval. So it's more than just being good at something, but we're going to simplify it and say, if you are good at something, people give you a pat on the back for it. They say, good job. And then we also have things that we're not good at doing. But here's something that's very important to understand for this. We have a lot more that we are not good at doing than we are good at doing. Because in the category of not good, it's not only things that we are bad at doing, it's also the things that we're just okay at doing. The category of being good is a lot smaller than the category of being just okay and bad. On the other side of the axis here, we have things that we genuinely like to do. These are going to be things that give us self-actualization. These are things that are helping us reach our potential. We reach our potential by doing the things that we are genuinely enjoying doing, things that we like to do. Now, those are going to be the things in our real self. Our real self is full of things that we like to do, things that we care about doing. Not just things that we do because other people give us a pat on the back, but the things that we also genuinely like to do. So in that category, we have things that we like to do and things that we don't like to do. But again, that don't like is a bigger category than like. That don't like involves things that we are bad, that we hate doing, as well as things that we are just indifferent to doing. We don't care about doing them or we hate doing them. Both go into the don't like. The like category is only things we like to do. So what ends up happening there is we end up with a couple of different possibilities. We have like things that we like to do and things that we don't, that or we're good at doing, things that we are not good at doing. So we end up with the category first and foremost of things that we like to do that we're good at doing. So in this box right here, I would very simply describe that as that is our happy place. You're going to do those things as much as you can. The thing is, there's not enough things in the happy place to only do those things. So if we look at the other extreme, there's things in our lives that we don't like doing and we're not good at doing. Well, you're never going to do those things unless you absolutely have to. But then we have two cells left. We have a cell for things that we like to do that we're not good at doing, and a cell for things that we are good at doing that we don't like to do. That's where in the PowerPoint, these two things can conflict with one another, self-actualization and positive regards. Those needs are not always overlapping. They only overlap in our happy place. For our assignment, you're answering this, I am dot, dot, dot. Well, everything you write down is going to be in your self-concept. So these are all going to be things that you are good at doing because it's unlikely. It's not impossible, but it's very unlikely that you are going to say, I am something that you are bad at doing. It could happen. Actually, can definitely happen for someone with a very healthy psyche at this point in time. It doesn't really happen in the general. Sorry about that. In the general idea of this exercise, because this exercise is usually done for people who are trying to get some self-help with a counselor or something like that. So people who aren't in the greatest of states in their psyche. I'll get to that. But yes, Adila. Most people here are going to be answering, I am ... and it's going to be things that they're good at doing. Because we get that I am this because of the positive regard that we get. Now, some of those things are going to also give us self-actualization, be in our happy place. If I'm good at this, if it's something I'm good at, if it's also something I like to do, it's in my happy place. And those are going to be the things that are in our real self. That's where these things will overlap. Now, everyone's going to be very different here. Some people in this room, some people in our classes will have only 3 or 5 things that overlap. And some people are going to have 15 of their 20 overlap. Everyone will be different because everyone's at very different states in their psyche. And our psyche works like a rubber band stretching. Until you stretch it too far that it snaps, it can be very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be very, I can't think of the word. Stretchy, because I can't think of the word. But the point being, we all can be in very different places. That doesn't mean that we can't get the space. So that could be what an exercise like this does. That's why, actually, I didn't even mention this because of when we went online, but a big part of the last part of the classes, actually a focus that everyone benefits from talking to someone. Talking to not just a therapist, but talking about something real with our close friends and family. We can all be each other's therapist. And I will have in a live stream next week, I will actually go into that because next week in the live streams, I'm going to give a couple of like kind of takeaways from things. Point being, we all can be in very different places in our psyche. Our psyche is designed to have ups and downs, highs and lows, to stretch. As it stretches, we get closer to a breaking point, but that doesn't mean we will get to a breaking point. It only gets there if it snaps. And then we get to the point in time of when it rains, it pours. So that's what this exercise is about. It's preventing you from getting to that point where the rubber band would snap. If you do this assignment on your 20 things, you realize that 17 of them are in your self-concept and not in your real self, that'd be a good sign that you should start working on yourself a little bit. And that's why we're doing an assignment like this. I very much like to do that self-help type of thing. So when you're writing this list up, you're going to start with all the things in your self-concept because I am this is going to be something that's in your self-concept. The question is, will it go beyond your self-concept? Will it also get into your real self? Is this part of your congruence? That's in the PowerPoint slide. Hopefully a good amount is. If everything you write is in your congruence, that would actually be a negative thing. But hopefully a good amount of this is in your congruence. That would be things in your happy place because now you have things that I am this, I am ... And it's also something I actually like to do. I actually care about being that. But inevitably for all of us, some of the things that we write on that list are going to be things that we are, but we don't really care about being. We all have those things. We all have things that we are that we don't really necessarily care that we are. Maybe you are someone who, maybe you're someone who is a great cook, but you don't like to cook. You cook because you cook for your family. Or maybe, like me, you cook because you're pretty good at cooking, so it can make a good impression on a first date or something like that. But maybe it's not something that you actually really enjoy cooking. You mostly cook just because people say, wow, this is delicious. That's an example of something that's in your self-concept but not your real self. Because after you write these 20 things, and I've talked about the writing the 20 things a few times, after you get all of those down, that's when you start to evaluate them one by one. Don't evaluate them as you're writing them down. You're brainstorming. What brainstorming is, the idea comes, so you write it down, or you would say it out loud if you were brainstorming with oral communication. You immediately write it down. You don't evaluate it. So the best way I can explain that, think about when you're in the classroom and you have a question that pops into your mind. Brainstorming would say you would ask that question immediately without giving it another moment's thought. That's what I want you to do for this. In essence, what happens for so many students in the moment in the classroom is they question, is this a good question or not? I don't want you to do that for this assignment. Is this something I really am? That evaluation, that is going to come after you finish the list. Once you finish the list, that's when you will start to write out. I literally keep looking how pale my arms are. This is killing me. I haven't gotten any sun in way too long. Sorry, that was my little tangent. I keep staring at it. I'm getting like so self-conscious about how pale my arms are. Okay, back to the point. As you finish that list, you will evaluate one by one. And each one that you evaluate, you really need to take a minute for, maybe even 2 minutes for. Now, I'm not going to say every single one. The first couple things that you write on that list is probably going to be very clearly in your happy place. The first 3 things, 5 things, maybe even for some of you 10 things, are probably going to be the core things about how you define yourselves. And often, not always, but often, those overlap with things that we are good at doing and like to do. So usually you'll see some things that you can get through pretty quicker in your happy place. But then you're going to get to the things that you really need to take a full minute, maybe even 2 or 3, and think for a little bit. Yeah, I definitely am this. I definitely am good at this. But is this something that I actually care about? Is this something I genuinely like? Is this something that is really deep down? Is this really something that's important to me? Because on your list, there's going to be some things that deep down aren't that important to you. They're things that you do because you like doing them. I'll give you another example of that. So when I was young, my mother made me take piano lessons. Now, when I was a young kid, all I wanted to do was bang on a drum set. My mom wouldn't let me. Well, my mom would let me theoretically, but she insisted that I take piano lessons. But, the extra thing about that was I was really good at it. Now, I never cared about it. I never wanted to play the piano. It was never important to me. But I was very good at it. And I remember, it's so funny because I remember very vividly at a holiday party with all my family playing the piano, and they would all be huddled around me playing the piano, and I was playing the Peanuts theme song, Snoopy and Charlie Brown, playing that theme song, and everyone was saying afterwards, "Wow, that's so impressive. I can't believe you could do that." I was like 5 or 6 years old. That feels good, and that's the point. Positive regard feels good, so we will value it. We have to, because we need that. Every day in our lives has good and bad that happen, and inevitably, everyone in this room, everyone in our classes, have had some bad days. Some days where more bad than good has happened in their life. And what happens in those days is we will become desperate to get a pat on the back. We will get to a point where we need someone to just say, "Good job. It's okay." To just give us that respect that we need in life. That could be something, if you've ever had a day where all you needed was a hug. That's that idea. A hug shows affection, respect, that can show positive regard. There are days where we just need that. And sometimes we need that so much that we will not care about if it helps us to self-actualize. Now, when we have too many bad days in a row for sure, or even just too many bad days in general, what can start to happen is that incongruence that's in the PowerPoint slide. We start to lose track of who we really are. And that's what this exercise is all about, is to see where you are, because just because you are losing track of who you really are doesn't mean that you would consciously know it. Our real self is in our unconscious mind. Not entirely, but a large part of it is in our unconscious mind. So you might be losing track of this a little bit without ever realizing, without ever noticing it. And if that is a place where you're at, well, now that can help a whole lot to do an exercise like this, because this exercise makes you look at that, makes you pay attention to it, or otherwise it can go unnoticed. And that's what you're doing with this assignment. You're writing this list. The list is I am dot dot dot. The I am the dot 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 is however you answer it. I can't stress this part enough because every time I've done this assignment, I have so many people that ask me the same question, and it's all about that. I have so many people, so many students that ask me the same thing. Well, what is the dot 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 supposed to be? Does it have to be a personality trait? No. It's however you would answer it. I don't want you to evaluate what you write. I just want you to I am dot 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 and write down whatever comes to your mind. Don't evaluate it. Don't stop and think, is this okay? Is this what I'm supposed to write there? You can have the most crazy arbitrary thing on there. You could have something that is a firm personality trait. I am outgoing. I am sensitive. I am caring, honest, loving. You could also have some things that are very, very specific. It could be things that are from hobbies. I am a singer. I am a video game player. I am an athlete. It can be even more specific than that. It can be I am a problem solver. I am logical. It could be I am a good driver. It could be I am smart, and be very generalized. Whatever comes to your mind. It could be things about school. I'm a good studier. I am good at a subject. I am smart. It could be things that relate to relationships. It could be I am a good listener. I am honest and loving. I am good looking. It could be things that relate to financial success. I am a good businessman. I am a good salesperson. I'm a hard worker. Whatever comes to your mind, I don't want you to evaluate it. It could be the most trivial, like silly type of thing that can come out. I'm trying to think of something that'd be really silly, that could potentially be realistic, but while being silly. I'm a fast reader could come up. That's not really silly though. I'm trying to think of something like I am really good at solving a Rubik's cube. Like that could be very, very specific and almost silly that it would come out when you start to look at like really this is something that I thought of, like something you would never have thought of other than doing it. Write it down. Whatever you write it down. Don't evaluate them, just write them down. So if that comes in, so theoretically, Katrina, theoretically, you can end up with some negative things. I am dot dot dot, and they're negative things. When we do the exercise, we don't hope to see them, but people can have, you could have something like a negative quality in yourself. I am dishonest. I am mean, so on and so forth. It's a matter of that can get into some other things beyond just what this assignment's going into. A lot of times when we see a lot of negative things, that goes into self-esteem things. So self and self-concept, self-esteem obviously is going to fit there because it starts before itself. So that actually has value when you're doing that with the counselor, not as much for our assignments purposes, but when you start to see negative things in there, that usually is cluing into self-esteem. And I think something that probably deep down a lot of us know is we can be our own worst enemies. So if you end up with negative things, I don't want you to evaluate them, just write them down. Go through the same process as normal. Ideally, you're going to be looking more in positive qualities, but it doesn't mean that everything will be. And then as you evaluate things one by one, you get to the end of that list. The end of that list, all 20 things, you have whatever it is. If you have 20 things, maybe you have 10 that are in your self-concept and 10 that are also in your real self. That's what you're then writing about in the paper. In the paper, it is informal. It is something you can use the word I. It's conversational. It's not something I want you to stress about the tone of the paper. The one thing I need to see in the paper is that you can apply the self and self-concept. Beyond that, it doesn't have to be a research paper that the entire paper is about researching what the self is and the self-concept is. Yeah, you're going to make a mention to what the self and self-concept is. But what I need to see is that you can take your things, your list of things, and apply them to the self and self concept. I need to see that you understand what the self and self concept is and that you can apply it. I don't need to see what's called identify and describe. I don't need to see this is the definition of this and this is what that definition means. I need to see this is what the self and self concept means in your examples with your actual list. You don't have to put your full list in the paper. You're going to be talking about the things in your paper for sure. But when I say you don't have to put your full list in the paper, what I specifically mean is if in your list of 20 things you look at and there's a couple of things that you evaluate that, yeah, they're probably true for you, but they're not things that you want other people to know about, including me reading it, that's fine. I imagine that on a list of 20 things, you'll probably end up talking in the paper for more than half, but probably not even maybe 15 as a rule of thumb of those things. Maybe not even 15. There's probably going to be a few of those that you'd rather keep for you. That's fine. So you don't have to give me the full list. You're going to talk about that in the paper. Okay. Now let me get to questions about everything, but that's the assignment. Again, for those who might have came in a moment late, some people are going to write this up and it's almost going to look more like a diary entry or a journal entry in that sense, because it's so reflectionary. It's going to be talking about your example and how it fits with the self and self concept. Now, some people will definitely write more of a formal tone to that, and that's fine. But I just don't want you to stress that this has to be a formal essay. It's not a formal essay. It is an exercise. It is you're writing a 2-page paper off of an exercise. I don't understand what you mean, Adila. If you're saying I am ... and it has something to do with the past, if it comes up into your mind, you can absolutely write it down. I am a bad driver because you got into a car accident 5 years ago. Yeah, if it comes into your mind, yeah, you can write that down, but it doesn't really matter whether it's immediate or older. Most of what you write on the list should be more positive traits. That's not to say everyone will fit that. There might be a very small few of my students in the classes that have a list that's have bad qualities, but it should be more positive. So I don't think you're going to get to too many old events and things like that. If your reasoning behind being honest is as you start to really think about that, I am ... I am honest, and you're like, well, there was this one time 5 years ago where I told my best friend that their significant other was cheating on them, and it was the hardest thing I had to do, but I wanted to be honest, even though I was friends with both of them. Yeah, if that is your reasoning, by all means, talk about something in the past, by all means. So, but however it works for you, I guess, is the answer to your question. Sure, absolutely. Shoot me an email and we'll chat about it. It's more of a just one-on-one type of thing. Does anyone else have any questions? More than any of the normal live streams, I had a lot to say today. But with that said, that's the assignment, and that's how it relates to the self and self-concept, going over it a little bit. If you have any questions, let's chat about them. But a lot of extra information about this stuff, a lot of that extra information is going to be all through the module. And the module is now at the top of the page for everyone. So it's at the top of the home page, the articles and PowerPoints page for those who have it, and for the other classes just on the home page or on the modules page. I have it organized differently in the different classes. So I've been trying to avoid saying that, but however it is organized in your class. All right, anybody else have any questions? Obviously, I'm here for a little bit. I'm not going to rush out. If you have any questions, obviously we're going to chat about them. If I covered everything, answered all of your questions, if you're now feeling comfortable with writing this assignment up, then you're good for today's live stream. I will be back doing these again for I have all of my classes in the room right now. I invited everyone. For my Wednesday class, I'll have it just for the Wednesday class on Wednesday. And for the Tuesday and Thursday class and the Monday class, I'll invite the Monday class to the Thursday stream as well. But I have the streams Wednesday and Thursday is the point coming up throughout this week still. So we still can talk about it more after you actually write the list up, give it some thought. But if you don't have those questions, then you are good for the live stream for today. Take a look at everything, watch the videos for the week, look at the PowerPoint, the chapter for the textbook. This is a very important chapter. In the classroom, this is the chapter, this is the biggest PowerPoint that I would cover with you all. This is the PowerPoint that I'd be lecturing for them more than any other one for. You know, most of the other PowerPoints is like an hour in total. This is, I would say, closer to an hour and a half in total that I normally would have lectured. So this is an important topic. Please make sure you understand it. Especially, obviously, the self-concept you have an assignment for, so I'll know if you understand it from the assignment. But please, even though I don't have an assignment for it, make sure you understand the psychodynamic mind, the id, ego, superego. Please watch the extra videos that I have. If you don't, I have in the 10-minute lecture, I have a little bit about that. I posted a video giving you an example of that in my own words. And then I have a couple of other videos for this week that go into to that as well, and some of the other theorists as well. But psychodynamic mind, you must understand. I mean, definitely one of the most important things for the entire class to understand. And the last thing I will say one more time, for those who did hop in a little bit late, grades from last week for the group discussions, I'm trying to get everything up today for. You will definitely see your answers to the 2 discussion questions in each form. That grade's going to definitely get up today. If you were in a group presenting, I'm going to try to get them all up today too. Those will be later today. And they might not get up until the morning. But I think I looking through the forms this morning, I think 90% likely I'll be able to get everything done and graded by tonight. Otherwise, I'm going to hang out in the chat room for another 5 minutes. If you have any questions, put them in the chat log. But like I said, if you don't have any questions, then we are good for today. Email me if you have any questions from now until the live streams later in the week. But stop by the live streams and I'm sure we'll have a couple of more specific questions that we'll be covering. Oh. All right, so taking a look at it, looks like it's me and one other person in the room right now, but I haven't gotten any questions in about 5 minutes. Whoever is here with me, if you do have any questions, shoot me an email and we'll cover them one-on-one. Sorry. And otherwise, I will see you at the live stream a little later in the week.